Sawadee Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone in this webinar. So my name is Pran, and I will be your MC for today. I would like to welcome everyone for today's sessions. So you are now watching the webinar on the topic of the potential of integrated urban energy system. This session is organized by the Asia Pacific Urban Energy Association together with Informa Markets in Thailand. So today we gather many of the experts from Thailand and also from around the world. So they are in different places and in different time zones. So they will be discussed about the importance of the potential of the energy efficiency and integrated energy solutions in the energy transitions. And before we start, I would like to inform you a little bit about the platform that we are using. So first, all the microphones and cameras of all the attendees is visible for the whole session. If you wish to ask any question to our speakers, so please go to the Q&A at the bottom right corner. In case of any technical issue or you would like to contact our staff, so please send your request to the help tab at the same location. At last, after the session ends, so please give us some feedback by complete the survey at the survey icon on the screen. Without any further delay, I would like to pass the floor to our moderator for today. So he is Mr. Peter Lundberg. He is the head of operations at the Asia Pacific Urban Energy Association of Thailand. So now I would like to pass the floor to the moderator. Good afternoon, Kun Peter.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Peter Lundberg. And thank you for joining us today with the session, The Potential of Integrated Urban Energy Systems. And as Pran mentioned here, this session is arranged by Asia Pacific Urban Energy Association and Informa Markets as a part of the ASEAN Sustainable Energy Week. So I work as the head of operations at the Asia Pacific Urban Energy Association, and I will be the moderator of the session. So this seminar aims to discuss the importance and potential of integrated energy solutions in the energy transition. And by integrated energy systems, by recovering waste energy from city or industry activities, cities can address a growing energy demand with more efficient solutions and reducing stress on power grids, increased flexibility, and allowing a higher share of renewables in the energy mix. However, to maximize the benefits of the energy integration, there's a need to take an overall approach to energy planning and allow all actors to participate in the planning process. And to discuss on this topic today, we have 4 speakers to share insights on the importance of systemic efficiency, integrating renewable energy into the grid with battery energy storage systems, the potential to recover waste energy, and also how to support energy transition in cities. And in the end, we will have a Q&A session. So please save your questions for the end, where all the speakers will stay and answer all your questions. And questions can be written in the Q&A box, and we will answer them in the Q&A session. Before we start the session and hand over to the first speaker, I would like to give the floor to Michael Jacobson, who is the Executive Director at the Asia Pacific Urban Energy Association, to give his opening remarks and a short introduction as well to the session. The floor is yours, Michael.
Thank you very much, Peter, and good morning and good afternoon, everyone who are joining us here today. And thanks to Informa Markets to partner up on this session, which is part of the ASEAN Sustainable Energy Week. We had an IPCC report released in August that was no pleasant reading. It was clear that the human activity was the main cause for the climate change, that the CO2 levels was higher than in a million years, and a lot of issues are waiting ahead of us. However, at APUEA, we try to also see the positive signs. We see many different actors are acting in the right direction towards the clean energy transition. And we have a strong belief that in order to succeed, we have to have a holistic approach where integrated urban energy systems is the key to integrate renewable energy, to utilize local resources and achieve energy symbiosis. And we have a great lineup here today to talk about these topics from an overall holistic perspective, but also details on how to utilize these integrated urban energy systems. We will hear from UNESCAP, from the World Economic Forum, Black & Veatch, and also the Swedish Environmental Research Institute. So I'm looking really much forward to the speeches today, and I hope everyone enjoys it. And then we are looking forward to a great discussion in the end of the session. So thank you very much, Peter, and good luck with the event.
Thank you very much, Michael. So our first speaker today is Vincent Minier, who is a fellow at the World Economic Forum and Vice President of Global Strategy, Perspective and External Affairs at Schneider Electric. And as of 2021, Vincent joined forces with the World Economic Forum as a Materials, Energy and Infrastructure Platform Fellow. And in this role, Vincent contributes to shape the Net Zero Carbon City Initiative and lead the design of new supporting tools to trigger decarbonation investments in cities. So Vincent will share insights on the importance of systemic efficiency. So welcome, Vincent, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Peter. I will share my screen, so just let me know. It should come. Just let me know if it's okay. But you should see my screen, full screen now. Is that okay? Okay, good. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. So yes, I'm Vincent Minier from Schneider Electric, and I'm a project fellow at the World Economic Forum, working and contributing to an important program called Net Zero Carbon Cities. I will detail what it is. But before that, I would say I would like to stress out what does mean systemic efficiency and how this systemic efficiency is a North Star of this initiative. So I will move to next slide. Basically, when you look at the city, city mayors typically have many stakes, many concerns, and decarbonization usually is not the first one. Usually, it may be air pollution. It may be grid resilience. So decarbonization is not always the first concern. Still, as you said, Michael, the first concern now is okay. How do we decarbonize a city while taking into account other issues? So the rationale in looking at the systemic efficiency way about decarbonization is basically not to look at in silos, but think about what should be the future-proof investment for a city in a holistic way. How a building can contribute, if I take the example of a building, how a building can contribute to sharing of energy because he has rooftop solar. How storage in a building can contribute to grid resiliency. How mobility and decarbonization of mobility through charging of electrical vehicle makes sense not only on public infrastructure, but also on private infrastructure. What BNEF recently said is 90% of charging of electrical vehicle will be made at home and work, for example. So you see, it's not about it's both about sector coupling and about sector integration too. So the rationale for this initiative was really to look at this. So it's the easy thing of the project, I would say, is the technology piece, because technologies are somewhere here. But the project is really trying to tackle how do we make it happen. I will come back on that. So this approach has been the North Star of these projects, which started early 2020 just before COVID wave. So in 2020, basically, we built the framework, the vision, taking into account all stakeholder positions. And this led to a report that I invite you to read. So the focus of the initiative was about built environment, grid decarbonization, and mobility, while we do not forget about, for example, water and wastewater and industrial side, but the focus was really on these three ones, because there are obvious sector coupling aspects. Just detailing here, what does mean technology exists? We have a couple of examples of buildings, for example. that are existing buildings, real customer project. I can mention the Edge de Loat in Amsterdam, where they are using energy community solar, for example, in their net zero building. They are using geothermal heating. They have on-site EV charging. These are technologies of today. And while you deploy this technology, notably the digital technologies like the building management system, it also contributes to air quality and comfort of the occupants. So it's not only about decarbonization. Another one, a little building in Finland, where basically it's carbon free for rooftop solar and clean grid electricity. But the interesting thing is that there is heat recovery in this building that goes and provide heat to the district heating. This is one example. And the second point is there is grid services that are provided to support the stability of the grid system. So these are two examples which shows that it is possible. I could have taken other examples, like in Singapore, a renovated building that we managed to reshuffle in. But it's everywhere. There are opportunities. Now, coming back to the project, and this is really my message here. The objective of this project was really to provide tools to the cities, because the problematics of the cities are very different depending where you are. So the objective of this program was to provide practical solution depending on your geographies and depending on the structure of your city, depending on the built environment, depending on the grid, depending on the concern of the city. So this is point one of this slide, would design a toolbox of solution. Second, we decided to push a dissemination of this vision, especially in India and China. So we have sub-projects for deploying this concept into India and China. And the third one, we have what we call a financing future-proof building handbook. We decided to really provide operational tools and decided to start with the built environment, but there will be pieces about mobility and grid, about how when you invest into a building, it's about decarbonization of the built environment, but it's also providing other services to the city, district, mobility, grid. And we have also another aspect in under development about embodied emission in the built environment, which is another project. Now, I'd like to spend a bit of time about a toolbox of solutions that got launched recently at the latest SDIS meeting organized by the World Economic Forum, and it will be relaunched at COP26. This toolbox of solution is basically providing a list of already 200 solutions that are decarbonizing cities, but which are ranked according to the stakes and the concerns of the city. So if I take, for example, bus fleet electrification, it's a decarbonization solution that also provides service to, because it's basically reducing air pollution. This is one example. So this toolbox is available, and it's available in different ways I will detail. Beyond that, there is inside the tool what we call a city sprint process, where if you are a city, you can enter in a short track assessment of your city and see how you can decarbonize, taking into account your concern. In the coming months, the toolbox will be enhanced with more solution tailored to geos, notably. So here is a snapshot of what's in the toolbox. You see the bottom, the top left shows what are the trigger of I would say selectivity of solutions. It's about grid health. It's about density of the built environment, and it's very well detailed. And you see at the end of the I would say a questionnaire, you see a list of proposed solutions for your city with your concern and and these technologies are decarbonizing your city. Another example here is that if you are already involved in a decarbonization if you already have a kind of decarbonization target, you are already advanced in your pathway, you can straight away select a technology. You can, for example, type fleet bus electrification, building management system, or whatever, and it will help you. You will go directly to a number of technology solutions with real case examples that have been tracked already. So quite a work, but we strongly believe it's very beneficial to all kinds of cities. Now I will speak about another stream of work of this program, which is about, okay, if you want to decarbonize the environment, typically what you have, if you are a city or a building owner, you decide, you put yourself a target, okay, I want to decarbonize, I want to be carbon free 2040, that's good. If you are a building owner, you know at the end that you will be able to use certification and labels to show the world that you are decarbonizing your asset. But when you consider all buildings, not just the top ranked buildings where basically corporations know about it and can launch plans, you have all buildings of the city, for example, that are very different. You have social housing, you have single house, you have multi-dwelling, you have public buildings. Now, how can you increase the level of understanding of the many cities and many city teams that are not specialists about decarbonization, shows them that investing into decarbonization is much more than creating value with respect to decarbonization, but it's also creating value for about systemic efficiency aspects, about health and well-being in the building, about socio-economic aspects like jobs. Okay, if you want to invest into decarbonization of your public buildings portfolio, for example, in a city, the question of creating job is probably quite important. So this stream of work is a work in progress, where the aim is to provide a framework that help what we call asset owners, any type of asset owners or decisioner, to make sure that they invest into technologies that will create value in the future, not only just a short-term value, but that will be future-proof for your building and your assets. So this, at the end of this, the delivery of this framework will be a playground of a trusted playground where decision maker will be able to have a sound conversation with financing institution, whatever the financing institution are, depending on who you are as an asset owner. So this is work in progress, and this tool should be delivered at the next annual meeting Davos in 2022. I will stop there. I would invite any city that is interested in knowing more, first going to the website of the World Economic Forum of the initiative. It's called Net Zero Carbon Cities. Please have a visit, and it's worth having a visit. You can have a look. And understand the logic of the toolbox of solution. And if you are interested to know more about what will come in the future in different regions, please contact Purana, which is our lead on that, and feel free to get to get in touch with us. And I'll be happy to answer any question later on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vincent, for the great presentation of the Net Zero Carbon Cities program that you're working with. I'm sure there are many people interested in knowing more about the program, and so please ask your questions. Write your question in the Q&A box, and Vincent will address them later. Thank you, Vincent. So we move on to the second speaker today, that is Mr. Parrot Indradesa, who is a project manager at Power Asia at Black & Veatch. Parrot is responsible for developing teams working on technical and commercial aspects of renewable project development, and has a strong experience on solar projects. So Parrot will present on the topic integrating renewable energy into the grid with the battery energy storage systems. Welcome, Parrot. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Peter. Let me share my screen. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Prod Interatet. I am the project manager of Renewables department from Black and Which. I'm based in Bangkok. I have been working for renewable business for over 10 years. And today I'm glad to present about the hot topic of the integrating renewables energy into grid with the battery storage, or we can call it as the hybrid generations. So the key agenda we will talk about today we will talk about the overview of the hybrid of renewable generations. We will talk about what is the hybrid generations, why it becomes popular, and how this system worked in the past, and how it works in the futures, and where does the storage play in the grid. So let's start with what is hybrid renewable generations. A hybrid energy system or hybrid power usually consists of two or more renewable energy sources used together to provide better system efficiencies as well as better balance in the energy supply. For example, it could be wind with solar, it could be biomass with solar, or it could be solar with batteries. But for today, we will mainly focus on the hybrid of renewable with the battery storage, which is the hot topic when people talk about hybrid system. People ask why hybrid? There are several factors driving hybrid with battery storage become popular. To reduce our carbon footprint by electrifying society, lots of installation of renewable energy source has become mandatory. But this require grid-tied energy storage system to balance energy productions and consumption demands. And also it will to help the grid stability. Also, the hybrid system can offer a sustainable options for the electrifications of remote locations. These are some examples of why we need hybrid renewable generations. More importantly, as you may know, the battery price is much lower than in the past, and it is feasible to install right now. So these are the key factors driving the hybrid solutions become popular now. For this slide, what I want to say here that we have seen that there are two key dimensions of hybrid generations. The overall here is putting together the energy storage with other generations, wind, solar, thermal power plants, diesel engines, etc., etc. But this term hybrid became the hot topic over past 2 years. The first thing that you start putting the storage physically near the generator, and that what co-location is. With this now state, the operation scheme, we have a common interconnection equipment, but it operates each asset independently and have a separate control system. But instead of operating two assets, for example, solar field and storage unit, it would operate only one integrated asset. Internally in the system, we may store the solar energy in the noon time to be used later in the day. But the owner does not have to operate the system separately because they are integrated together like this. This is what we call integrations, which become common for the future state. From this photo, you can see the battery containerized versions. And you can see the wind turbine here in the background. You can see the transmission line. You can also see the solar farm here. That is a kind of combination we're looking to for hybrid renewable energy. Let's talk about the battery energy storage 10. Here on this little bar graph, the green one, you can see that the energy storage is not expensive as it has ever been. The price keep coming down. Today, we have seen the cost in terms of dollar per kilowatt hour is only 25% of the cost in 2010. And we forecast that it may come down to less than half of what it is today by 2030. These are reasons driving the price of battery down. You can see here, sorry. Someone may already know the lithium-ion battery cells used for the mobile device and EV are the same thing that used for stationary energy storage on the grid. And because they are growing so dramatically, stationary business benefit by the economy of scale from manufacturing those cells. And 90% of the battery cells are used in EV, and only 10% are used for stationary business. And when people think about the batteries, people always think about what about safety, what about lifetime, what about recycles. These are long topics to discuss. We won't touch much for today, but all I want to say here is these issues are being addressed. There is a sentence that I got from my friend which I quite like it. He said that storage is no longer a solution looking for a problem, but it is a solution to many problems. So back to the question that where are we going to put the energy storage to the grid? Let me summarize the grid in terms that I use with many clients. Traditional component of a grid, we have generations, we have transmission system, and we have end user. Generations transform energy into electricity, coal, solar, or wind. And transmission system move the electricity from where it generated to where to use, from here to there. It is like a highway for electricity. And then device, we transform electricity into what we really want. We want the light on, we want hot water, we want cold beer, we want internet fast. These are traditional grid, but energy storage, the new things, it moves electricity from now until later, which sometimes we can call it time machines. Like for solar with battery, you can charge the battery in the noon time to be used at the night time. With the traditional generations, we burn fuels as we need it. That's how we control the dynamic. But we burn fuels when we need more electricity. But in the carbon-free world, we have to take the solar or wind when it's there. Take the electricity, store it, and use it later. That's why we need hybrid solutions. So basically, energy storage is now a new asset in the grid, shifting the energy from time to time. It is a solution for grid stability, make the renewables generation to be firm, dispatchable electricity. With all those words in the previous slide that I explained, from this picture, generation is on the left, transmission is in the middle, and the end user is on the right. Everywhere, when you see the little green box here, 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 or here, that is where the storage fits. And you can see it fit everywhere. It fit in the generation side, it fit in the transmission side, it fit in this end user side. We can install the storage with the building to manage the peak load. We can charge the storage during the off-peak and then discharge during the peak to reduce the demand charge. This can be integrated with solar rooftop as the most common hybrid system for building, for example. It can be also put with the transmission system to relieve the congestions when there is too much generation in the system. The oversupply energy can be charged to the storage and then used later. These solutions can mitigate the issue of the generation curtailment, which we have seen in many countries, where solar oversupply at noon, and some plants they has to shut off some inverters and curtail the generations. Also, it can be used to defer the investment of the transmission systems. In some area, when the peak load is growing, it will hit the transmission line capacity, and then we will need to upgrade or build a new transmission line. But if we install the battery or the hybrid system in the distribution network at the downstream of this transmission system, during the peak period, it can be supplied by the battery storage and charge the battery in the off-peak time. Then investment in transmission line can be deferred. Battery storage can also put together with conventional generator, hydro plant, solar, wind, coal, or nuclear. What I want to say from this slide is battery storage fit everywhere. Battery storage is more affordable and becoming more and more common to assist the system for stability, congestions, and can balance demand and supply. It is a hybrid component enable flexibility and increase benefit to the grid. So the hybrid generation now, the trend is nothing but up. The technology is improving. The policy is being put in place. Engineering happening. Construction happening around the world. Control system is more sophisticated and grid integration is happening. So other interesting observation that I like you to know is that it needs to be fast response system on the grid. Things happening in milliseconds, in minute, in hour. Look at this the graph. These are the frequency regulations that keep the frequency at 60 Hertz. These are frequencies. Here, the frequency reserved from event and then way to return grid to the frequency level. System has to respond fast. And again, we need time shifting resource. We want to keep energy in the storage during the off-peak period and use during the peak period. We want to shift from noon to evening, from night to day. Either fast response or time shifting. Hybrid with battery solution can support this requirement. This is the monthly generations from wind and solar. You can see here, the blue one is the generation from wind. The yellow one is the generation from solar, and the load is the dashed line. This example shows that wind generations is good in the beginning of the year and end of the year, which match very well with the solar generation profile that have the good generation in the middle of the year. However, there are still gaps between the generation and the demand here. This is where the energy storage come into play and become hybrid system. Imagine that hybrid generations add firm, flexible, dispatchable generations and stable grid operations. But today, we don't have to imagine anymore. It's real. Let's go and build it. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you very much, Parod, for that great presentation on the battery energy storage. I think this is really something that we see coming on a strong front, and it's going to be interesting to hear your thoughts on what will happen here in the near future as battery prices are coming down and things like that. So thank you very much, Parod. So let's move to our third speaker today. That is Miss Kristina Lygnerud, who is an energy department manager at the Swedish Environmental Institute. Kristina coordinates multiple projects, where one is the EU project H2020 called Reuse Heat. And she also works on sustainable business models focused on district energy, and as a researcher at the University of Halmstad in the field of business model innovation in district heating. She's also an operating agent of a project on the fourth generation district heating technology implementation under the supervision of the IEA District Heating Corporation. Kristina will present on the topic, the potential to recover waste energy. Welcome, the floor is yours, Kristina.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning, good afternoon. I'm also, by the way, chair of the European Platform for District Energy Research. You kind of forgot that, Peter. So I just added. Today I'm here and I tried to collect some information from different sources on the use of waste heat. So both outcomes of projects, own research, other people's research, and input from industrial partners. I will address 6 things. We have heard already the importance of cities. I will address waste heat as a low carbon heat resource. I will give a Chinese case. I will also discuss the risk of industrial closure, which is always there if you talk about waste heat. I will give an example from Sweden on cooling using waste heat, and then do some closing remarks. So cities are very important for our climate work. Even though they only stand for about 3% of the planet's surface, they emit 70% of all greenhouse gases today. And if they would continue when they keep on growing with the urbanization trend we have, that would be a very bad development. But this is all known and action is taken. We have a UN goal, Goal 11, of sustainable cities. We also have different initiatives like the mission of 100 climate neutral cities by 2030 by and for the citizens. This is interesting because it also engages the citizen. And as we heard from Vincent earlier, the net zero carbon cities. And there are many ideas on what we can do in cities. We heard that we can use renewables when they are there, the wind, the sun, the water, the geothermal, the waste heat. And we are also engaging into electrification, energy efficiency. We want smart cities, smart grids, smart buildings. We are thinking about things like sector coupling, again, using the citizen, prosumers, flexibility, and much more. So that leads us to waste heat, which is a low carbon heat source, and often it's generated from some process or infrastructure, and in many cases it's not used, it's just emitted through the surrounding environment or air. And the industrial waste heat recovery potential is large, but it is still largely untapped. And Sweden, a small country where I come from, is actually world champion on waste heat recovery from industry into district energy grids. And there it's also a low level. 9% of the heat supply comes from industrial waste heat. So there is much more to be done. And as Peter mentioned, I coordinate an EU project on the recovery of urban heat sources. That is heat sources that appear because people live and work in cities. So down here on your right-hand side, you see the vision of the project. And the vision is that you should be able to recover low-temperature heat sources from sewage, metro systems, public sector buildings like hospitals and data centers. And in the future, the cities should be able to cover part of their energy demand by these sources. And we made a study in the project and we identified that we could meet potentially 10% of the heat demand in EU 28 with these sources. And today, basically none of them are used. So to conclude here, waste heat is a low carbon heat supply and it can be used more, and it's not rocket science. So let's go to the Chinese example, which I found in an article published recently. It's written by a group at the Building Energy Research Center in Tsinghua University in Beijing, China. And it's the case of a city in the northern part of China where they had existing problems with their heating system. So one of the problem was decentralized coal-fired boilers, and they needed to be replaced because the thermal efficiency was low and the air pollution coming out of them was severe. And it was identified that gas and electricity was too expensive for the replacement. And it was a city where the heat area was growing annually by 8 to 10 million square meters. So there was a heating supply shortage, need for cost-efficient strategy to reduce energy consumption and air pollution. So what did they do? Well, they decided to replace the coal boilers with cogeneration and waste heat recovery from there, as well as industrial waste heat recovery from a steel plant. And in 2017, these sources provided 79% of the basic heat load for the supply in the city. And for peak energy shaving, gas was used, but by using this method and lowering return temperatures in the heating stations, the heating transmission capacity and energy efficiency were improved. So in sum, the system has replaced 3.66 million of tons of standard coal usage per year for heating and eliminated 13,000 tons of air pollutant emissions and 9.5 million tons of CO2 by reducing the coal usage. And also it was indicated that the heating cost of the system was lower than that of coal-fired boilers. The project started in 2013 and was put into operation in 2016. And in 2020, the interesting picture here from the article shows us that the heating supply looks very different now. So what has been removed is the coal-fired generation. A little bit of gas remains, but the large new pieces is the waste heat recovery with the extraction from steam heating and waste heat. So this is then a study I wanted to bring your attention to because it's being done already with great impact. Yes, so let's go then to the risk of industrial closure. So in the Chinese case, there was this steel plant providing waste heat. What would happen in such a situation if the plant would shut down or go somewhere else? This is something that is often discussed, but very few have tried to quantify the risk. And this is why myself and Professor Sven Werner decided to do this a couple of years ago. So we went back to our own country, since we are advanced in waste heat recovery collaborations for a long time period. And we investigated all collaborations since 1974 to 2014. And we made an inventory of the industries where we had heat recovery. And you can see here in table 3, it's from this paper we published, that it was from many different industries like metal ores, food products, beverages, wood products, pulp and paper, printing, coke and refined petroleum, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, rubber and plastics, non-metallic mineral products, basic metals, metal products, machinery, energy supply, and waste management. So it was kind of a big mix of waste heat sources coming into being recovered. So what did we identify then? Well, we identified that large collaborations, large volumes of waste heat recovery tend to have a longer lifespan than small collaborations. So this means that when you make this kind of investments, it's actually better to invest to really recover large volumes than small volumes, because that will have a longer lifespan. We also saw that the payback times were in the range between 1 and 7 years, and we found that the collaborations, a majority of them, 2/3 of them, lasted longer than 8 years. So we concluded that there was a good payback on these projects before they were closed. And we also identified in our data sample that collaborations with heat pumps tended to fail more often, and we understood that this was directly linked to the price of electricity, and the price of electricity was changing a lot in Sweden in certain periods of time in the time range that we studied, the 30 years we studied. And we also identified reasons for the terminations that we found in our data set, and they were 3. One was technical failures, because it seems that often the waste heat recovery becomes overly complex in terms of technology, and then it tends to fail. And then we found that sometimes a choice is made to not reinvest again in waste heat recovery at the end of life. Instead, you use other heat supply substitutes. And the third one then was this industrial closure. And when we tried to quantify it, we found that it impacted around 13% of the heat recovery volume per year. Moving then to cooling and district cooling in Sweden. In Sweden, there is one of the largest district cooling grids in the world, and it's located in Stockholm. The number of providers of district cooling in Sweden is limited. You can see most of them in this list. Maybe some have been added, but it's a few years old, the list. But the number of district heating providers is much larger. But anyway, it's a growing trend, and we see that there is an increasing demand also for cooling. And the technologies used in Sweden are absorption chillers, heat pumps for cooling production, but also for heat production, conventional compressors, and free cooling. And if we go to the example of Gothenburg, the city where I live, they do district cooling, and they use a lot of free cooling, for example, from the river that you see in this picture, but they also use absorption chillers and compressors. And here in this picture, you can see that since it's close to water and there is waste heat to be obtained from industries, it's a good idea to use the waste heat. And the waste heat comes from waste incineration. There is a big plant, and also from refineries with activity in the harbor area. So 22% comes from the river, and then we have compressors and absorption. And the networks are dimensioned for a 10-degree difference between the feeding and the return flow temperature, and pressures to be at the customer control valve in the range of 100 to 600 kilopascal. This leads me to my closing words. Here again, you have the vision of the Reuse Heat project, the vision of a city that is more or less self-sustained with using smart heat sources. The sources can come from industries and be rather warm, or they can come from people living and performing their daily activity in the city. So we know that waste heat can be used for heating or cooling if you have a grid in place. And we know that it's low carbon and often cost efficient. And also the risk for industrial closure is limited. So my final word is low carbon district heating is possible. So let's do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina, for sharing the insights on waste energy and what's possible about the potential of using waste energy. I think it has great potential, and we will come back to this topic in the Q&A session. So we'll move on to our fourth speaker today, who is Dr. Anis Saman, who is an Economic Affairs Officer at the Energy Division of the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, or ASEW. Dr. Saman is leading renewable and sustainable energy expert with over 20 years of experience in Asia and the Pacific in the energy transition pathways, planning and mitigation strategy development at both national and subnational levels. Dr. Saman is going to speak today on the topic supporting energy transition in cities. So with that, Dr. Saman, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Peter. So just allow me to share my screen. All right, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. It's a great pleasure to be able to speak in this event, and my sincere appreciation to the organizer. On the topic of the energy transition in cities, I will present two important activities that even ASEW is doing. So on one of the these activities is SDG 7 localization, which is a qualitative assessment of how cities are performing in relation to achieving SDG 7 targets. And the other one is the development of sustainable energy transition roadmap, which is a very extensive analytical study to develop possible energy transition pathway for the city. So let me give you a brief on the SDG 7 localization. So what is SDG 7 localization? In order to achieve the goals, the SDG 7 goal, a lot of actions will need to be undertaken. Although most are global goals and that need to be implemented at the national levels, cities do have an important role in ensuring these goals and targets are achieved. Why? Because cities are at the center of all economic activities, and therefore bulk of the energy consumption as well as greenhouse gas emissions occur at the city level. If we are talking about paradigm shifts, for example, moving to electric vehicle, it is the cities that will make this happen. If it is about air pollution, it is the city that will need to bring the change. So cities are at the heart of ensuring the SDG 7 goal is achieved. Now, looking at where are we at the moment, so it has been estimated that more than half SDG 7 targets and indicators cannot be achieved without relevant actions at the local level. Cities are growing rapidly. In Southeast Asia, the urbanization is increasing rapidly, and cities in this region hold more than half of the population, which in turn putting a lot of pressure on the final energy consumption, and this will continue to occur. On the positive side, cities do have a number of advantages that can accelerate this work. In most cases, cities are autonomous when it comes to making a policy decision, so they can easily set a target and put together a policy. They can easily coordinate and engage with different stakeholders. Cities can easily invite investors. So all of these make cities to speedily act on SDG 7. So we undertook an assessment of 20 cities for which the SDG 7 localization snapshots were developed. Many thanks to all cities who participated. So these cities cover 5 countries from the ASEAN region. We analyzed all 20 snapshots to identify key trends and lessons learned. As you can see in this graph, that the results have been summarized across 7 indicators that we identified that those are the indicators are important to assess the performance against. The variability of scores is very significant. The average score, as you can see here, is 47, which is below average and just moderate. One of the key challenges faced by the cities is the limited access to financial resources. Cities have interest often in implementing sustainable energy measures. However, they lack financial resources to implement on the ground. Another area that is commonly a problem for cities is the sufficient data management facility, which is necessary to undertake a well-developed energy plan. And of course, the lack of ability to implement measures is also something that requires improvement to ensure SDG 7 is sufficiently realized at the local level. Here are some more detailed results. So we looked at the progress of energy access, renewable energy, and energy efficiency. We identified that energy access is not only a rural problem, but also it exists in urban areas. For example, slums and informal settlements in cities do not have access to modern energy. When it comes to renewable energy, while there are some policies and targets in cities, but the actual use of renewable energy is still limited. Energy efficiency is the big thing, as cities use a lot of energy, and therefore there are vast opportunities for energy savings. For example, in the transport sector, which is one of the big energy consuming sectors in cities. So what are the some takeaway points? We have learned that cities are the center in taking actions on SDG 7 and helping to achieving the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The progress in ASEAN cities is not so lucrative, particularly for, or especially for the cities that we have analyzed so far. Immediate strong actions are needed at the city level with the help from national governments. Data monitoring and accessing finance, capacity building, sector integration, all these are necessary, which require coordination and efforts from all levels of government. Development of energy transition roadmap is critical for cities to identify the opportunities and enabling policy measures to achieve SDG 7 at the local levels. And finally, integrated approaches for energy transition is important as energy crosscuts different areas. With all these takeaway points in mind, we developed an online tool to help cities assess their progress and performance on SDG 7 localization. It can be used by any city anytime. The link is here, and you can access after the workshop. In our project, we used a Word document to collect information and analyzed the SDG 7 performance. With this tool, the city can perform their own assessment and get a result immediately. So good luck with the assessment. So following the findings from the SDG 7 localization initiative, we identified that if we can develop an energy plan in the context of SDG 7, taking into consideration of the local aspects, it would help the cities to develop enabling policy measures. So in this section, I will discuss some of the key aspects of the 3 sustainable energy transition roadmaps that even ASEW has helped cities to develop. So first, coming with what are the objectives of the sustainable energy transition roadmap? These roadmaps help cities by supporting the development of enabling policies that would help achieve sustainable energy transition targets and indicators. One of the key indicators is to enhance the renewable energy development and its use at the local level. The roadmaps also examines the potential for cities to increase its ambition in the energy sector. This includes, for example, decarbonization of the power sector, which can be done by increasing renewable energy share in power supply. The roadmap also examines the potential of cities to set a target for net zero carbon over a longer term, say 2050. So the task requires an integrated tool that has the ability to undertake a holistic energy planning by covering all sectors and end users. This needs to perform a couple of things. For example, technical analysis where energy and emissions modeling will be done. An economic analysis, preference should be given to least cost approaches. Policy analysis that is needed to identify policies that are appropriate to the local context. To support these analyses, ASEW has developed National Expert SDG tool for energy planning, which is in short next step to support the development of the roadmaps. Here is an example of the Sustainable Energy Transition Roadmap developed for the city of Jakarta. The roadmap identified several opportunities for energy efficiency improvement in the city, covering all economic sectors. Diving deep, the roadmap quantified the amount of energy that can be saved, not only from each sector, but also by technologies and measures. This way, it helped the city to identify the pathway to achieve its energy efficiency improvement targets. As you may be aware that the transport sector is one of the biggest challenges when it comes to energy supply and use at the city level. It not only produces greenhouse gas emissions, but also is a major cause of poor air quality in the city. The sustainable transport scenario of the roadmap of the city of Jakarta investigated various options to reduce energy consumption. Some of the key recommendations have been to increase the fuel economy standards, accelerate the modal shift, such as moving from private use to public transport. We must acknowledge that the city of Jakarta has been implementing the world's largest BRT system, which will ultimately see a big change in the transport sector. This expected change has been taken into consideration while developing this roadmap and their scenarios. Increasing non-motorized mobility, such as by constructing dedicated bicycle path and encouraging daily commuters to use bicycle, has been another recommendation. I also acknowledge that the city recently piloted a bicycle commuting program and has received a good response, which is an indication that this avenue needs to be further strengthened. This roadmap for city of Jakarta also looked at the potential for the city to embark on the journey towards the net zero target, which appeared to be both technically and economically feasible, which presented several recommendations, and all these recommendations are backed by in-depth analysis to achieve net zero target in each sector. These include, for example, gradually switching from LPG cook stove to high efficient induction type electric cook stove, replacing its large fleet of conventional motorbikes with electric versions, and introducing non-motorized transportation such as bicycle to not only reduce energy, but also to create a better living place for its citizens. The roadmap also compared the cost of different power supply options and found that the higher share of renewable energy, which is necessary for net zero, is cheaper than the current practice. Similar roadmap has also been developed for Iskandar Regional Development Authority in Malaysia. The roadmap helped to identify technological options to achieve its renewable energy share, which is 12% by 2025. Some of the recommended interventions are using its waste resources to generate part of its electricity demand and to increase distributed solar power generation capacity. The roadmap found that by implementing the recommended mechanisms, the authority will have a large net benefit, which is much higher than the current practice. There are ample opportunities for Iskandar Malaysia to reduce its energy consumption by increasing efforts to energy efficiency, but particularly the industry and commercial sectors have the highest potential. The roadmap not only identified sectoral potential, but also provided details of how each measure could be implemented. Lastly, for the city of Kawan, the roadmap provided information on how to close the gap in energy access for both access to electricity and access to clean cooking fuel. When it comes to energy efficiency improvement, the roadmap provided details of sectoral potential with specific measures. For the transport sector, it recommends to encourage the use of public transport and electric vehicles. For the commercial sector, enforcement of green building code to all new buildings would be very effective. And for the residential sector, phasing out of inefficient lighting and cooking appliances has been identified to be a reasonable approach. In relation to the net zero pathway, the roadmap recommends some specific measures for the city to consider. These interventions are similar to what have been found in the sustainable energy scenario, but with higher ambitions. These include gradual retirement of conventional vehicles, which can be done by electrification of all vehicles. The city should consider mandating green building code to all commercial buildings, irrespective of their sizes, and encourage installation of solar PV rooftop on residential buildings in alignment with the national policy. The roadmap also identified an emission reduction target that the city should consider and adopt. The roadmap development is also associated with a next step capacity building tool, which is also upcoming, but currently it has the next step online portal. So the online portal is readily accessible. You can see in the graph, in the image, that there are some screenshots of the online portal of next step. The cities would be able to browse through the online portal and see all the results and key informations from the analysis. And additionally, as you saw in the slides, that there are cover pages of the reports. So all the reports are publicly available. And if you would like to have a look at either the reports or the online portal, you are very welcome to do so. So with this, I conclude here and I give the floor back to Peter. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Dr. Salman, for that interesting presentation on how you're supporting the energy transition in cities in ASEAN. I think it was very interesting, and to see that the developments are made in ASEAN cities. There's still a long way to go in terms of reaching the SDG goals. So if you have any questions to Dr. Salman, please write it in the Q&A box. Okay, so we have reached the end of the presentations. So it's now time for the Q&A session. It will be about 25 to 30 minutes. So please address your questions in the Q&A box if you have any. And we will address that. So we have some questions here, and I will start here with Vincent here. So when you're describing the Net Zero Carbon Cities program, can you elaborate on the program mission and how do you evaluate the progress and development of the project or the program? And can you also describe who can join and contribute? And also, is it open to use for everyone?
Yes, thank you, Peter, for this question. Yes. So this tool is free to be used, so you can use this tool, and so it's really a place to go again. Try it. You have different capabilities of the tool, so you can try. Of your city, we have currently, I believe, 12,000 cities possible. If you are not listed, just select the city close by to have the, I would say, the geo aspects. Now, if you want to make a city sprint assessment, which is a kind of short track assessment supported by our team, please send us an email, and we'll probably accommodate for that. Now, in joining the initiative, yes, we want to onboard as many cities as possible. We are in contact with the European Commission and European program regarding the 100 cities decarbonized in 2030, if I remember the name of the initiative. We are partnering with the Resilient City Network organization already, and we are in contact with many city networks like C40, Urban 20, and this kind of networks. So yes, please do not hesitate to get in touch with us through the contact I provided you earlier. So how we will measure the progress? It's twofold. It's obviously the number of cities that will enter into a decarbonization pathway thanks to this tool. So we will have ways to measure activity of this toolbox, obviously. Of this will enter into these pathways and the follow-up. Yes.
I think we are cannot hear you at the moment, Vincent.
Yes, can you hear me now? I'm sorry, it's you're frozen.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, I was finished, in fact. So I said that please get in touch with us through email and try the platform. And yes, we will track the progress in number of cities and of course in the many geographies, especially in the new economies in the global south.
Okay, thank you very much, Vincent, for that. I will move to Parrot and to continue to talk about hybrid renewable energy systems. How do you see the opportunity of these systems in the ASEAN region? What will happen in the near future?
Yeah, this is a very good question, Peter. I would like to say that I see it almost everywhere in the regions. Like in Vietnam, if you know that Vietnam is aiming to reduce coal, right? Although they have increased lots of renewable energy productions in last few years, but they cannot take full advantage of this due to the grid limitations. So they expect that the government expect that the hybrid system with the batteries, energy storage will be a solution for the grid deficiencies. So there is a fund from a U.S. agency to study and demonstrate the commercial viability of the renewable with the battery storage. And the success of this project can lead to a lot of hybrid renewable projects in Vietnam. Also in Thailand, back to 2017, we launched the SPP Hybrid Firm program for 300 megawatt in Thailand, supporting the growth of the hybrid solutions. And also EGAT has developed a pilot smart grid project in Mae Hong Son with a mix of solar, hydro, and battery storage. PA also developing a utility scale battery project in an island in southern part of Thailand to defer the transmission line investment. And in Indonesia, Yeah, we learned from our clients that nowadays PLN has a concern on the fluctuation of the renewable generations, either solar or wind, in particular for solar. They are looking for hybrid solutions with the battery for frequency support. When we work with our client during the feasibility study stage, they have been asked by PLN to consider the battery into their design. What I try to say here, all these countries are in the beginning of the hybrid solutions programs, and each country has promoted renewable, and they see that renewable alone is not reliable, and the hybrid solution can solve many problems. So the answer is yes, I see it everywhere.
Thank you. And just for the audience to know, Black in Reach, you're working in most countries in the ASEAN region, or?
Yeah, actually, we are the company globally. Our head office is in US, and myself, I based in Bangkok. I support all the project in Asia, these regions in Asia, but our project is around the world.
Thank you very much, Parot. So
Thank you, Peter.
I will move to Christina. And you talked about risk of changes or closure of industrial activities, and that how that might change, let's say, energy infrastructure that has been built to reuse energy. And you concluded that the risk is maybe not that big, that large in the past. But do you think that will change now in the energy transition when we are moving to a low carbon society?
So we actually make right now a follow-up study on new sites that are about to conduct this kind of waste heat recovery. And for all of them, they see that the risk that the industry will go away is kind of small. So the risk is not perceived as increasing in those cases, but also the fact that you will probably in the future not have only one source. If you go for data centers, metros that I just said, then you have a whole basket full of eggs, so to say, which then would reduce your risk harvesting this kind of heat resource. And this is the development I would believe in for the future, multiple sources in one system.
Right. So actually adding more possibilities into reusing waste energy or waste heat. Okay, thank you. Just want to go back to another question we got. You mentioned that from a European perspective that 20% of the energy in Europe or heating could come from waste energy. So what is happening in the EU and from a European context in terms of utilizing this energy resource source?
It's still a question for me?
Yeah, Christina.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, there is increasing interest to use waste heat as a resource. And what we have found in the many research projects is that there is not one legal framework today explaining what waste heat is. And therefore, it's difficult to compare it to, for example, renewables, solar, wind, whatever. So this is a first hurdle, but this is being discussed for upgrades of European directives. I was in some contributing meeting in spring, and then it was discussed how should we see waste heat and how should it be incentivized and can we compare it to other sources. So I think the making it more homogeneous so everyone can come across the hurdle and they know what they invest in is one important step, and that is for sure happening in Europe. And there is, as I said, increasing interest in the topic.
Thank you, Christina. I think so. Hopefully, there will be many lessons learned that can be used in other parts of the world and also in the Asian region, even though with maybe a focus on cooling instead of heating. Okay, so thank you, Christina. I want to move to Dr. Saman. And so you have described the importance of cities to the important role cities play to meet sustainable development goals. Can you elaborate how do you engage with local governments in your work, and what activities do you feel are crucial now to meet the SDG goals in ASEAN cities?
Thank you, Peter. That's a good question. So, ASEW is an intergovernmental organization. So we do have direct access to not only the national governments, but also the major cities. The UN has an office in every country. So we do have kind of channel to reach out to all the relevant authorities. We also work with different networks in the city networks, and through those networks we can access the city authority and the provincial authorities as well. So how do we engage? We start with the conversation on the need, what is their need, and we provide them some information on what these roadmaps can be, how these roadmaps can be helpful. Once that is received by the city makes a decision whether they would like to participate in this. And once that decision is made, we form a working committee with different people from different agencies within the city, as well as some external people if necessary. In some of the cities, in the working committee, we also had participation from the federal governments because we found some relevance as well. So those are the kind of activities, engagement process. And I must say that the roadmap that we develop, it follows a very extensive consultation process. So it is a consultative mechanism and totally participatory. So we have stakeholder consultation workshops in various stages of the development. We collect data from the cities. So actually cities provide us the data, not we provide them the data. That means city has the full ownership of the what is coming out of the assessment. We undertake the assessment. Once some results and key findings are out, then we take it to the cities, organize a stakeholder consultation workshop, and make sure the cities understand these results and they agree with it. Once that is done, we use the final version of the results and findings to develop the roadmap. And once the draft roadmap is ready, we send out for consultation again. So you can see that there are a lot of consultation processes that is involved. So in the end, what we can get is the roadmap that is totally reflecting cities' context. What is needed to do? I think there are a couple of things. There is no silver bullet that we can use. So I mentioned in one of my slides that data management is important, because unless you know your data, unless you don't know what needs to be done, you cannot do anything. So that is important. The cities should really focus on the data collection and data compilation. They need to engage with all different stakeholders, not only within the city and the local area, but also they need to reach out to different levels of government, because there are many policies that you will find that are implemented, that cannot be implemented solely by cities. They need actually consent from the national government. So that way you need to work across the government. So you cannot really work alone. And also the SDG 7 roadmap, Sustainable Energy Transition Roadmap, which was my second part of the presentation. And you can see how detailed work has been done. So basically it has tried to analyze exactly what the city is at the moment, what needs to be done, and how they can proceed. So taking into consideration all existing policies, plans, resources. So it's a very detailed analysis, and that is giving cities the perspective of the future plans that the city will need to put into place to move ahead with the energy transition. So essentially, this is one of the most important things that I would say the cities need to develop their own energy plan, energy transition plan in the context of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, as well as the Paris Agreement. And just one point I would like to add here, Peter, is that we have developed this 3 roadmaps. We are currently developing another 3 roadmaps for 3 Thai provinces, Surat Thani, Udon Thani, and Chiang Rai. There are also some in the pipeline. So this is ASEW can do this actually. So if there are cities that are interested, we can accept the interest and we can start conversation with cities and see whether that is something we can support them. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Salman. Just stay with you for one more question here, and also I think a question we got here, I think in regards to your presentation, is that progress for ASEAN cities was moderate so far, and just describe that impactful actions are urgently needed. So can you give some examples of the most crucial actions that is needed at the moment?
So yeah, just linking with my previous answer. I think they need to work with the different governments. They need to identify what they need to do. So in many cities, they don't know what to start with, how to start, what is the starting point. So they need to really analyze their situation, and that would be taking an assessment using the SDG 7 localization assessment tool. So that's a qualitative assessment, and it's free, available to anyone. Any city can do it, just going on onto the website and just doing an assessment. Then they will get a sense of what they stand at the moment. Then if it is interesting, then they can reach out to ASEW for a detailed and extensive assessment and developing the roadmap, and the roadmap will bring out all the policies that is needed for the city to implement. And also this will give you the the likely financing resources that the city will need to implement the energy transition. So at that moment, there will be a lot of collaborations with the different stakeholders and also different sectors of government. And finally, data collection is important. So the cities should start with the data collection and also start with linking with different investors to finance the transition. So those are the couple of key points that they need to do. But basically, it needs to cover everything, all SDG 7 areas and what they are lacking at the moment. So as you said, progress is not really looking very good.
Thank you very much, Dr. Salman. I will move to Vincent again. It's a question we got here that you mentioned that buildings play a very important role in the energy transition, and also to integrate power, transportation, for example, and buildings. So can you, in your experience, what are the low-hanging fruits for buildings, how to reduce energy consumption, and what is possible? And the database that you show, does it include new and also existing buildings?
Okay. Answer to the latest question is yes. So we have examples for new buildings and existing buildings. On the new buildings, obviously, the topic of embodied emission is critical, and circularity of materials. Buildings is about 40% of carbon emission globally. When you take into account the energy that is inside. So in fact, building is aggregating a lot of carbon emission. And when you look at, in a nutshell, what needs to be done to decarbonize building, it's about energy efficiency, clean electricity, electrification of processes. When electricity is clean, and typically in cold countries, it's about heating. The heating load is very big. And the fourth dimension, and clean electricity, it's about local solar. If you can accommodate for local solar, I would say on-site solar. It's not only rooftop solar; it can be on-site solar. Otherwise, you can work or your electricity bill through PPAs, power purchase agreement of renewable, either wind or solar. But I would say the low-hanging fruit are the energy efficiency. If I take an existing building, typically you should really look at where are your consumption. So the first thing to do is to measure where is your energy consumption and associated carbon emission. And assessing the carbon emission is not too critical. In fact, if you do know your electricity bill, your energy bill, and you know the mix of the electricity mix of your country, it's quite, or your city, it's quite easy to come to the carbon emission. So it's not too complicated to do that at building level. So I will give you the example of Schneider Electric as a company. Schneider Electric has started a long time ago a decarbonization plan, and we started by energy efficiency in buildings, because this is the easiest way. You measure and then you can have actions. The second is about decarbonization of your electricity through green sourcing and local solar or PPAs. The more difficult part is about heating, because decarbonizing heating is not so easy, because when you want to replace coal or gas, so you come to biogas typically, or the availability of biogas is not so much here. So you move to electricity. So electricity can be about heat pumps, for example, but you have to pay attention about the carbon content, the carbon intensity of your electricity. But when you do these three, you basically decarbonize most of your building environment. And one point which is very important is the role of digital. If you want to optimize, for example, your local solar with your electricity tariff, you can really manage dynamically your optimization and decarbonization path. You have to think also about the future of electrical vehicle as a storage asset, and how it could, when charging at building, when doing smart charging at building, you with the right policy, you can use your EV as a storage asset, optimizing your local renewable, optimizing your cost if you have dynamic tariffs typically. So and providing in fact a leverage in reducing the overall system cost. If you have smart charging in building, for example, you will be able to select which car is going to be charged at which moment, and you will avoid peak loads. So you will avoid over investment into grid, into copper wires typically. So you have really to think about smart equipments and smart management. And basically, it's about, this topic is important because it's about what is a future-proof investment. What is a future-proof investment? If you just install a heat pump, it's not enough. You have to think about, it should be a smart heat pump. If you invest into EV charging, it should be smart. Why? Because you are deploying, in fact, distributed energy resources that are already providing you decarbonization, but we will provide you even more in the future with the availability of new policies and deployment of new policies, which will create more revenue stream, in fact. So you really have to pay attention to that. And if you do not have a smart asset, you will not be able to retrieve information about energy consumption, availability, and so on. One other aspect of deployment of distributed energy resources in the built environment is the beyond decarbonization, is the ability to provide resilience. If you can manage locally your any kind of storage plus local energy, you can also manage a resilient aspect of your building, which can be quite important with respect with the process you are managing, whether it's a hospital or it's a hotel or whatever.
Thank you very much, Vincent. So it's a lot about communication. It's also a lot about energy storage comes into the picture as well. But thank you for the insights on from a building level. So I want to move to Parrot again. And how optimistic do you feel that battery energy systems and hybrid generation system, when will they replace conventional power plants? Do you have any thoughts on this?
Wow, that's excellent question, Peter, and difficult questions to answer. Basically, yeah. Well, in my personal opinions, I might not be very optimistic for a total replacement, but it seems to be a consistent trend that you will need a good mix of reliability generations. It also depends on the policy in each country, but for me, it is optimistic that it will be substantial of the part of the generation, but not the entire replacement.
Thank you very much, Parot, for that. But it's going to be interesting to see what's happening in the future anyway, with energy, the cost for batteries really coming down at a rapid pace. And there's a lot of things going on in the manufacturing of batteries. So it's going to be interesting to follow for sure. Christina, we have a question here on data centers, and because they also produce a lot of waste heat, or they need to be cooled. So do you have some insights in how you can utilize waste heat from data centers?
Yes. So this is what we do in this reuse heat project. We have a data center providing waste heat from its processes to a low temperature district heating network, which is supplying heat then to newly built buildings and also a supermarket and a shopping mall. And what we have seen is that data centers tend to move every 5 to 10 years when the urban area becomes even more dense. So it's not as a stable heat source as you would believe, but that's a news that we discovered in the project. And then also the scale up of IT equipment, it's not happening day one. So you cannot really build your data center and start recovering waste heat on day one. There is a lag there. And the offer should probably not be to take over the waste heat, but rather to offer a cooling service to the data center when you engage in the contract writing with them. So these are our main takeaways from that very concrete case.
Thank you very much, Christina, for that question.
Can I add something, by the way?
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah. And we also see we have this ongoing activity with a web-based questionnaire, and we see that the number of data centers across Europe starting to recover heat and the interest is the biggest one of these 4 heat sources that we mentioned. And there is a lot, especially in Ireland, with the data centers. Great.
Thank you very much, Christina. I would like to hand over the microphone to my colleague, Michael Jacobson. He has some questions, so let's try to, Michael, you can go ahead and ask some questions.
Sure. Thank you, Peter, and thank you, everyone, for great presentations. It's a lot of insights here. Parot was touching upon the topic of different policies, we can say diversities. I mean, we have audience now from across the region and around the world. And you obviously, all of you are working in different countries where we have a diversity. There are different climates, there are different economical development, different regulatory frameworks and policies. So this is an open question to actually all of you. I mean, how does this diversity influence your daily work? Could you give some examples of this? And maybe we can just start in order. I will ask Vincent first, if you could say something in your daily work, how this diversity impacts.
What comes to my mind is, in fact, that cities have more power than they think. In fact, they can really draw local policies on top or complementary to national policies. I will give a couple of examples. New York City, they created a new policy for decarbonizing buildings. Sorry, it's again the topic of buildings, but what they do is that they are saying, okay, for large buildings of on different segments, not all segments, we will measure the energy consumption of the building, and we will from both the direct emission from fossils and indirect through electricity, we can derive the carbon emission that you are emitting every year, and we will put a cap on this emission. And every year we will decrease this cap, and if you don't decrease, you will be fined. So it's a very, very US way, but we will be fine. But what is interesting is that it's just not a coercive policy. Aside from that, they bring subsidies for local renewable, for heat pumps, for this kind of technologies. This is the first point. And the second point is that this does not apply to all buildings. And in particular, they pay attention to distributional effects, and they don't apply it to social housing, obviously, and some multi-dwellings, and if I remember well, public hospital, for example. So they really pay attention in not putting the burden on citizens. So this is one interesting example. Another example, maybe you all know, but in Berlin there was announced a ban on diesel cars. So this is another example of local policy. You see UK wanting to ban fossil heating in UK homes by 2025. It's a national policy, but a local government could do the same. So really, there is power in the hand of city mayors, but it has to be done carefully, paying attention to the citizens, to low-income people. Obviously, it has to be, but it's feasible, really. One other example, maybe which is an interesting one. Maybe Christina knows about it. It's about innovation contest. I know that Helsinki City brought an innovation contest to decarbonize their district heating. And what they say, the constraint was, we do not want biomass because we believe there is some air. If I understand well, there was one aspect of air pollution, and the other aspect is that we don't want to burn wood. So the contest led to replace the central heating. If I understand well, it will be done with an industrial heat pump that will make use of the local cold water. If I understand well. So my point is not about the solution here. It's about the way the way cities can empower themselves.
Thank you very much, Vincent. I think it's great. I keep moving on here. If Parrot want to add something to what you said before on the different policies or other aspects that influence your daily work.
Yeah, actually, I see it positive
and empower themselves.
Sorry. Yep. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, I see this is the opportunity and bring something new to my daily work. We have a lot of clients, they are looking for some solutions. They have a lot of their assets in off-grid area, which they want to get some supply. Currently, they use the diesel generators, and because of the location is quite far away in the remote area, the cost of fuels is very high. And they try to find a way that, okay, what could be the solutions? They always think about the renewables. But again, when we think about renewables, it's something that it's not dispatchable, it's not reliable, it's not forecastable. So they come to us and, okay, Black and White, can you think about any solutions that can deploy at my site? And that's what we are doing with them. We're developing a solutions and building a pilot projects. And if it's success, then it will be deployed around, thousands projects inside their, portfolios, which I mean, every day we have to think about new things. We have to think about solutions, how we can solve the problems, and that bring a lot of fun to me.
Thank you very much, Parot. I move forward to Christina on what you see in your daily work, both in terms of diversity, working in Europe and Asia and North America and other places. But also I would like to add to you there, because we heard from Vincent and Dr. Saman before, obviously how they work towards cities or with cities. Could you just also elaborate a little bit how you work with cities or municipalities?
Okay, so I think what is needed is that we don't lose track of the system perspective, right? Because there are so many things you could juggle with, and you really need to understand what to do first. So I think this is what we try to bring forward when we have projects and when we have discussions. And then also it's a lot of impact has to go into making the right kind of decisions. And this is why we often have a role to provide decision-making material that helps a city to go into the intended direction. Because many times you make a decision and maybe it's not going towards the system optimization, rather it's going into some other path, locking in some old technology. So I think the correct decision-making material is really where we can make a difference with knowledge and research. And on the innovation contest, actually, I was a finalist in this Helsinki challenge. And I think it was a great thing to do. I've never seen it before, that a city goes out to the world and says, bring innovation to us. Very, very interesting. And I think they got nice input. And the 10 finalists, from my perspective, were very, very interesting and relevant to see, even though I didn't win. Too bad. But yeah, I think this is a new trend coming where you can use the energy citizen. I was also referring to energy citizens before. Thank you.
That's great, Christina. And actually, I hear this being replicated also, that both cities but also developers are going out with contests. So I think it might be a trend here ahead. Let's see. I move forward to Dr. Zaman, because you're working across Asia Pacific and in general, but also ASEAN in particular. So please, if you could explain a little bit what diversity you see in your daily work.
Sure, Michael. Thank you. We are working with, as I mentioned before, we're working with subnational governments, so basically cities as well as provinces and regional authorities. We are supporting them with a pathway for them to achieve or implement the sustainable energy transition pathway in alignment with the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and by the Paris Agreement. So we are doing that. At the same time, we are also working at the national level as well, because not only the cities, but also national level has to make the final level of achievement when it comes to this 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. So both our national and subnational roadmaps are being developed. So we are working heavily on those. So until now, probably we have developed more than 15 roadmaps already. With the cities, we are also trying to see, we are working with cooling load, so cooling efficiency. So our another arm of the project is looking at increasing the cooling efficiency and helping cities to develop their cooling action plan. So that is currently also progressing. We have worked with a couple of cities, including city of Jakarta and other cities. We are also working on urban energy solutions. So we have another division at our at ASEW, which is Environmental Development Division. They have a section, very full section in their division, or looks after the city. So we are working with them to provide all type of supports that is needed. I also would like to mention here that there are a couple of things that we need to work with the cities. We need to provide with the cities. I feel like that awareness is one of the things that is lacking in the cities. That's because cities, they are always resources, they lack resources, and they are very time poor as well. So one person is doing so many things. And when it comes to implementing or working on this kind of agenda, they really lack the capacity as well as the lack resources. So we need to let them know that this is something important they need to really undertake, and also point them towards the helps and support that is available for them to work with this. We need to provide them support, not only just say that, okay, you need to do this, you need to do A, B, C, D, but also really work with them in holding their hands and just work with them to develop the solutions. There are a lot of solutions, and there are a lot of policies and technologies, examples of there, like Christina was giving examples of Sweden, Vincent was giving some examples. So there are a lot of things out there, so we need to really point them towards those things and work with them. We need to engage them. So this is one of the biggest things that we do mistake. So we develop something for the city without having them to fully involve in the process. So that's really doesn't work. So those kind of reports are often shelved and never looked at. So I would suggest that you fully engage with them and make them sure they take the full ownership of the outcome. Also, finally, there is a need for supporting them. So basically, not only doing the first level of analysis, but also you need to help them implement whatever the actions. The implementations will require some technical capacity building, but also more kind of finance. So you need to bridge the finance so we can hold policy, some dialogues, national or regional level dialogues on accessing finance. And there are a lot of financing opportunities out there. So we need to just bridge the gap between them. I'll stop there. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saman. I think we actually seen exactly the same thing as you say about the importance of awareness. And we established the APUEA Academy here half a year ago or something. So if anyone is interested in that, we're providing then capacity building for cities. Please reach out to me or Peter on that topic. With that, I would like to thank everyone. And I think what we have seen here today is heard from all the speakers is the importance of a holistic approach, move away from this silo approach, think about multiple benefits. It's not only carbon, there are other benefits as well that maybe is more important for some stakeholders. We have to think about and see the long-term values as well. I think that has been really great points pointed out during the presentation. So with that, I would like to thank everyone and a really great and interesting session. And then I would like to hand back to Peter.
Thank you very much, Michael. And I would like to thank all the speakers for contributing to this great session. And we look forward to work with you in the future, and so we can help each other to speed up the development in ASEAN cities. So thank you very much for watching us. And with that, I will hand over to Kun Pran and Informa Markets. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much to all the speakers and moderator to sharing the knowledge and also your expertise to the audience today. So, and of course, we would like to thank you to the audience who is stay with us until now. So before we leave, I would like to invite everyone to visit the virtual marketplace. This will be where some of the world's leading brands are showing the technologies, innovations, and solutions and services in renewable energy, in energy efficiency, environmental protections, electric vehicles, and smart pumps and valves. So only these 3 days, 14th to 16th of October, that you will be able to contact the exhibitor by using the chat and call function that we provided. And also even you can set the meeting time with them. So thank you very much once again, and we hope to see you all again next year in our physical event, which will be held on 14 to 16 of September 2022 at the new venue, Queen Sirikit National Convention Center in Bangkok, Thailand. So thank you very much, and please stay safe and healthy. Goodbye. ขอบคุณค่ะ
We are seeing growing momentum around the world among governments, private business, and individuals towards carbon neutrality and net zero. We all want to leave a cleaner planet for our future generations, and hence we must act now. SCG is strongly committed towards sustainability. Our EV solution platform will drive and accelerate the speedier conversion towards smart and clean mobility.
EV Solution Platform is a one-stop service under the Smart Clean Mobility concept that allows partners to run their business worry-free at an affordable cost. The platform covers 3 areas: focusing on finished product with battery safety as the priority. Local production, for example, EV bus semi-knockdown unit assembly line and electric vehicle conversion are manufactured domestically. Maintenance and spare parts service. Charging station. Logistics operation service. And IT platform development for a seamless connection between service and solution, making users more convenient and confident when transitioning into electric vehicles. Customized business models from rental service, sales package, to logistics provider service for products or employees, with vehicle incident insurance type 1 and battery product liability insurance. Our one-stop service creates an EV ecosystem that offers worry-free solutions at an affordable cost for our partners. It is also environmentally friendly as electric vehicles emit less carbon dioxide and PM 2.5, resulting in a better quality of life.
I would like to invite all our partners and stakeholders to join us in this exciting journey. We're passionate towards delivering smart, clean mobility to our customers. We will do this, we will make this happen by engaging with all of you in a spirit of trust. And most importantly, we will grow together.
SCG International, trusted international business partner.
ASEW ทรงพลัง DNA จาก Pajero DNA จาก Lancer Evolution 10 ASEW ระบบขับเคลื่อน4ล้ออิสระรวมทุกความเป็นไปได้ให้ทุกเส้นทางเป็นได้ New Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV.
Drive your ambition, Mitsubishi Motors. ไม่อยู่ในกรอบไม่อยู่ใต้กฎเกณฑ์ไม่ได้ทำเพื่อท้าทายหรือดึงดูดสายตาใครแต่ทำเพราะไม่มีใครเคยทำแรงเร้าใจครั้งแรกกับยนตรกรรมพลังงานไฟฟ้า 100% โดยไม่ต้องชาร์จ All New Nissan Kicks e-Power Power to Thrill
นี่คือมาตรฐานใหม่ของรถยนต์ MG EV เพื่อทุกคนวิ่งได้ไกลสูงสุด380กิโลเมตรต่อการชาร์จเต็ม1ครั้งราคา 988,000 บาท New MG EP ตอบโจทย์ทุกฟังก์ชันรถยนต์ EV สำหรับทุกคนนี่คือมาตรฐานใหม่ของรถยนต์ EV เพื่อทุกคนแบตเตอรี่สมรรถนะสูงพร้อมรับประกัน8ปีหรือ 180,000 กิโลเมตรวากอนดีไซน์ New MG EP ตอบโจทย์ทุกฟังก์ชันรถยนต์ EV สำหรับทุกคนนี่คือมาตรฐานใหม่ของรถยนต์ EV เพื่อทุกคนภายในกว้างค่าบำรุงรักษาตามระยะทางตลอด5ปีไม่เกิน 8,000 บาท New MG EP ตอบโจทย์ทุกฟังก์ชันรถยนต์ EV สำหรับทุกคนนี่คือมาตรฐานใหม่ของรถยนต์ EV เพื่อทุกคนมี Curve Mode ช่วยชาร์จพลังงานคืนสู่แบตเตอรี่ขณะชะลอรถจะไปกี่ประชุมก็ไม่พลาด New MG EP ตอบโจทย์ทุกฟังก์ชันรถยนต์ EV สำหรับทุกคน
Electricity never ceases to flow. Electricity is everywhere. Providing reliable electrical energy for our country is the main mission of the Electricity Generating Authority of Thailand, or EGAT. No matter how high or how deep we have to go, EGAT will bring electricity for the sake of the country and the Thai people. Under the vision, Innovate Power Solutions for a Better Life, EGAT generates electricity with reasonable fuel management. This creates a balance between stability, price, and environmental care. Additionally, EGAT purchases electricity from independent power producers, small power producers, and from neighbouring countries. Electricity is transmitted via the EGAT power transmission grid that stretches across the country to electricity distributors to meet the demand of each sector. EGAT also sells electricity to neighbouring countries to create power system stability for the region. EGAT aims to increase the organization's capability through research and innovative development of electricity generation. To support future needs, electricity generation is conducted with a hybrid system. In addition, the Battery Energy Storage System, or BESS, that supports grid modernization also allows EGAT to access the international renewable energy market. The National Control Centre, or NCC, and the Renewable Energy Control Centre help manage renewable energy effectively. Security of the electricity system is prioritised for both the present and future needs of renewable energy, in accordance with the government's policy and power development plan. EGAT uses its organisational assets to conduct electrical industry businesses. And undertakes investments that help strengthen the power system. EGAT Innovation Holding Company Limited was established to efficiently conduct business relating to electrical innovation. EGAT helps create a high-quality society by sharing knowledge with the community.
for a sustainable community. Walks side by side with the Thai people. And protects the environment with consciousness and technology. EGAT operates under good governance principles and core values. The night sky is charming, yet it emphasizes the importance of electricity. EGAT promises that Thailand's electricity system will always be secure, stable, and reliable. EGAT has driven itself into a century of innovation, generating sustainable and eco-friendly electricity. EGAT, power for Thai happiness.